Thanks, guys. Wow. Okay, so the big secret is that this is a karaoke machine, but I'm not going to be singing karaoke today. Thank you for such an amazing turnout. It's so exciting to see you guys all here today. Does it rain often here? No? Okay, it's just me. Hi, come in. So I'm going to talk for a little while, and then we're going to have some interaction, so you better pay attention, because if you don't, you're going to look stupid later when there's interaction. I'm going to start by talking about the meat industrial complex. We all love to talk about that, and that is actually in collapse right now. It is completely unsustainable. It's way too resource intensive to feed an exponentially growing population. It is destroying the earth. It's bad for people's health on a whole bunch of levels, and it only survives because it's completely secret. They are keeping this huge secret from the American public, and the system is so unsustainable that the only question is whether or not it's going to go down in time to save the planet. But there are starting to be cracks in the wall of secrecy, and obviously that's because of people like you guys who are creating these cracks. And it's because of all the growing awareness about the harms in animal agriculture. So it's going to go down. It has to go down. But unlike other social justice movements, the primary goal of our movement is not simply to just include another group or our group into mainstream society. The goal instead is to change what people buy. Though I, for one, I'm often fooled into thinking that I'm in the mainstream because pretty much everyone I know is vegan, and I live in a city with 160 veg restaurants, many of which are in walking distance from my apartment. Brag, brag, brag. The truth is, I'm not in the mainstream, and you're not in the mainstream at all. In fact, though it's hard to equate, some statistics have said that the vegan population in the United States makes up 0.5% of the population, effectively putting us in the margin of error. But maybe there's another way of looking at it, because for a margin of error group, we are a pretty powerful bunch. We have put these issues in mainstream media. We have gathered the attention of celebrities and policymakers like Ellen DeGeneres and Dennis Kucinich. We have put farm animal issues on the map and on the ballot. And as you guys know, I'm sure, as far as social networking advocacy like Facebook and Twitter, we have kicked it out of the tofu dog-laden ballpark. So put that together with the animal ag industry going down, and it seems we're in a good, productive place. Not a good enough place where we could sit back and cross our arms and watch The Nanny on our Netflix Insta-queue, unless, of course, you have already finished your dose of daily activism. In that case, go ahead and watch The Nanny or whatever your activity of choice is, minus The Nanny. But we can't just sit back. Margin of error. I mean, isn't that just insane? 10 billion land animals are killed every year in this country alone for food. It seems to me we're in the margin of certainty. But I think it's about time that we take advantage of the power that we have proven we have, get out of the margin of error, and effectively mainstream our message. We have already determined that the big difference between the animal rights movement and other types of social justice movements is that, well, of course, very generally speaking, the goal of other groups is to end the subjugation and marginalization of insert oppressed group here, while ours is to change the way consumers consume. And of course, the difference between the animal rights movement and the more specific farm animal rights movement can really be boiled down to one thing, to food activism, of course, generally speaking. And every person who becomes a vegan as a result of your advocacy is a victory. Everyone you feed and everyone you educate is a victory. But we have to also think beyond that, because unless, of course, you're Ellen DeGeneres, you probably don't know millions and millions of people. We have to get this into the mainstream more than it is. And it's starting to get in the mainstream. And it doesn't mean that you have to become part of the mainstream. But thinking beyond yourself and putting this in the mainstream is what's going to help us accomplish our goal. You know, it really strikes me as laughable when the animal agriculture industry says that people concerned with animal activism are against farmers. It's completely ridiculous. Farmers bring us food. I, for one, happen to love food, and I'm duly grateful to the people who bring it to me. So the people who are going to continue to make money are going to be the people providing food. When the meat industrial complex comes down, people aren't going to stop eating. So food must continue to be produced, and somebody's going to be making money producing it, and so why not us, right? The good guys. I always think that, what about farmers? Why are you so against farmers, Jasmin? Yeah. And don't think that the industry hasn't caught on to this either, because I love this. Cargill, one of the biggest animal agribusiness companies in the world, is producing vegan cheese. They might be evil, but apparently they're not stupid. So this is going to happen, but every second that we wait around for it to happen, instead of doing everything we can to push it forward, 286 chickens die. Chickens who were born to suffer so greatly in their very short lives. So we have to push this along because the suffering is just too great for us to wait. And not to mention the animal agribusiness companies, this industry, it is ravaging the world. We have to do something before catastrophic climate change and food poisoning epidemics and environmental destruction have taken their toll on our fragile little planet. These guys are destroying the world as I speak, so we have to act. As I said, there are already starting to be cracks in the wall. And it's our job to look at those cracks and point them out to people who haven't before seen them. And others of us are going to work on those cracks in order for them to become deeper and wider. There is room for each of us and all of us in this movement by this cracked wall. You know where there's not room for us? There's not room for us to not do something. So if you see a dog getting kicked, you would probably jump in and save her. Hopefully you would succeed. But regardless of whether or not you succeed, this experience will amp you up. You will tell your friends about it. I saw this asshole kicking a dog, you'll say, and your friends will be completely horrified. And you'll use this experience to just amp you up. You'll use this experience to put forth your newfound activism. You saw a dog getting kicked. You are now an activist. But what if you don't actually see the dog getting kicked, but you know for a fact it's happening? Would you do something then, or would you give the thought no more than a passing glance? Because after all, it wasn't you who did the kicking. Of course not. You would never kick a dog. And besides, you have dinner plans at 6 and it's 5:40 now. And what I'm asking is this: at what point is it our moral imperative to get active for animals? Of course, most of us in this room probably already know that it is our moral imperative to be vegan. If you don't know that, please contact me or anyone from Let Live, or talk to anyone around you for that matter. So assuming we're all on the same page here, then we have that covered. Veganism, check. So when is it morally void of us to not stand up and do something more? You might be thinking, but I'm shy, I'm busy, I'm a parent, I'm a student, I'm not as knowledgeable as this person or that person. Well, that's the beauty of activism, and that's the power of having this cracked wall and knowing that there's room for all of us by it. 286 chickens die every second in this country, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's a number I find unfathomable, and I simply can't not do something. And obviously, you can't not do something either, or you wouldn't be here today. And since we can't ignore this, and since there is room for us to do more, and since the industry is coming down, and since this planet is too, and since we, for reasons we don't totally understand, have come to be aware of this, unlike most other people, it seems to me it's our obligation to do something. We need a multi-pronged approach. We need to think big, as I keep saying, and I'll continue to say, we need to think mainstream. So while there's nothing wrong with leafleting on the street corner, and in fact, I'm a big proponent and participant of grassroots tactics such as that, we need to also crank it up a notch. So in addition to leafleting on the street corner, we need to create a massive shift in society. We need to change the way the vast majority of consumers consume. Some might say that the media is the way in, or at least one of the main ways in. This has already started to happen. But again, we need to crank it up, and there are ways to do that. For those of you who are exploring what to do with the rest of your life, you might consider going into PR. The dynamite part of media is that its power is really insurmountable. And as I keep saying, a major, huge goal that we have to aspire to, no matter what our avenue, is to mainstream the message. And media can give us that opportunity, probably more so than, say, grassroots activism. Of course, there is a connection between grassroots activism and media, because the bigger stir we can create on a grassroots level, the more possible it is that we will garner the attention of mainstream media. Most of us, if we get the chance, when we're talking about veganism, we'll talk about animal rights. Fantastic. We should use every opportunity we can to discuss these issues. But when we're talking about trying to bring in other people, there are ways to broaden the message to make it more relevant to these people. And that includes in the media. So here's a couple examples. The environment, obviously, big thing in the media. Newsflash, environmentalists, while it's great that you are carrying a cloth bag home from the grocery store, the fact that you have a steak dinner in the cloth bag kind of negates your gold star. And of course, there's also public health issues, which are currently huge in the media. So basically, the animals can benefit from any story that you spin their way in the right way. So start spinning. As the media continues to pick up these stories, and more broadly speaking, pick up the trend that the meat industrial complex is in collapse, guess what will happen? More companies will realize that there's a demand for these products, and they will start to create them geared toward vegans. Look at Cargill. When I found out about that project, I was convinced that it was a prank from the Yes Men. So besides just media, what else can we do? What I'm going to do is lay out a few examples and categories for us. These are categories where your activism could fit. This is the part you want to listen closely to, because soon I'll ask you to talk to someone next to you or a couple people next to you to do some brainstorming of your own. And for those of you who are already set with what you want to, you too, Isa. She's like, not me, I'm antisocial. For those of you who are deciding what to do with the rest of your life, great. For those of you who are already set in what you're doing for animals, I hope that you'll look at these opportunities as a possible future endeavor, something that you might be interested in doing in the near or far future. So we're going to start with grassroots, but I want to move beyond grassroots quickly, because I feel like a lot of people talk about grassroots, and I think we kind of, to some extent, have that down. But within grassroots, we have one of my favorite categories, creative advocacy. So you could really put in any of your talents and skills into creative advocacy, no matter what it is. So if you're a singer or a musician, why not throw a concert for animals? Or if you're an artist, why not use your art to express your advocacy? Look at people like Sue Coe, whose art is as harrowing as it is educational. Or Dan Ferraro, who draws the Bizarro cartoons. He has a syndicated column, and he often puts in pro-animal messages, and it reaches really a lot of people. So beyond that, within creative advocacy you have, insert the blank. If you're an accountant, why not put your accounting skills toward an animal group or an activist or something that will better the cause? If you have a service, why not offer your service to an animal group or to an auction? If you're a massage therapist, why not offer me a massage? You really can transform. Give me your number afterwards. You really can transform anything you do to benefit animals. It's pretty awesome, actually. It allows you to think of things in a new, fresh way. And also within grassroots, you have feed-ins. You have anything else that pertains to food activism, which includes making vegan cupcakes for your office party, baking me a few. Bridging grassroots with media outreach, we have writing. So even if you are not, those of you who maybe don't consider yourselves writers, you might check out at this point and say, okay, I'll wait till she talks about the next thing. But no, because even if you don't consider yourself a writer enough to get your article published, why not write a letter to the editor? Don't say you'll write a letter to the editor, actually do it. Try and do one a week. Remember, somebody is reading that. And maybe you could write a story for your local paper, try and get a column penned in your local paper, or maybe you want to start pitching mainstream media. This is what we need, I think. I write for Veg News, and I love writing for Veg News, but I always feel like 100,000 people are reading it and nodding vehemently and saying, yeah, and I'm like, I want to get that into like the New York Times or something. So pick up a copy of Writer's Market Deluxe, which is about $30 on Amazon, and it will tell you everything you need to know about getting an article published in that particular paper or glossy. It tells you how much it pays. It tells you how they want you to pitch to them. I would definitely recommend that. And the power of tweaking your message is really important. So if you're writing to a women's magazine, why not pitch a story about all of the great women you know who work in activism? Or if you are pitching a health magazine, well, that one's obvious. I'm not even going to tell you. Basically, anything you're writing for, you can tweak it to the animals. It's like a big social experiment. It keeps you on your toes. If you're working with a group, large or small, you might consider perfecting the art of press release writing. Start to develop strong relationships with journalists and make your pitches strong and important. This is particularly effective when you're dealing with local community outreach, because lots and lots of newspapers are looking for stories and they want to highlight what you are doing for or with your community. So let's talk visuals, which is a really important factor right now, especially in the internet age. So many people are turning out great videos from mainstream releases like The Cove to animal rights media like PETA just did one called Glass Walls featuring Paul McCartney, to essentially amateur productions on local issues like the one I made about my teddy bear. Catch it on YouTube. Find one you like and get it at your local library or at your school. Or better yet, be the one to make the amateur production. Armed with a flip cam and a dream, the sky is really the limit. You can make a big, enormous difference. Donnie Moss had no idea how to make a film, but he knew that something was necessary to bring awareness about the plight of the horse and carriage industry in New York City. So he taught himself how to make a film, and he has since gone on to play a really big role in the media, both locally and beyond, with the movie Blinders. He taught himself how to do that. So you really, it's definitely, if you have a Mac, not like I'm a Mac, I'm a PC. No, I'm a Mac. Then it's pretty easy. So for the students or the teachers in the audience, you might be in a particularly strong advantage to make positive change. Let's talk about academic outreach for a minute. If you're an undergraduate, does your school provide a course in human-animal studies? If not, why not? Do they have a minor in it? Great, cool. Do they have a major in it? If not, why not? Demand that, or at least request that. Lots of schools are starting to offer these courses, but it is truly shocking to me how underexamined our relationships with animals, one of the fundamental aspects of life on Earth, is in academia. So fix that, thanks. And spreading the word should not just be in a course devoted to the subject. If you have the opportunity to write a paper, you can write that for animals. No matter what it is, whenever you choose a paper, try to make it relevant for animals. You will not only have an opportunity to hone your own thinking, but you will be educating your professor who has to read that story. And when you do that, you bring up animal issues whenever it's possible to. you'd be surprised at the impact you have. Because even if at first people are like thinking that why are you writing about animal issues when it's like an unimportant topic, eventually they'll start to recognize this passion that they have within themselves, and they will start to develop their own point of view on it. And they might agree with you, great, and they might disagree with you, but isn't this the core of education, to try and get these conversations happening? I think that teachers and students have a very important role to play right now, maybe more so than ever before. By the way, Bob Barker just donated $1 million to his alma mater, Drury University, to create a chair in animal rights. The man seems to have unlimited resources to give. I guess it's all the, I don't know, the Price is Right might do that to you, I guess, if you have a hit show for like 20 years. But even if your school is not particularly interested in that, maybe just knowing that this kind of money is available will get your school administrators to start to listen. So a lot of people, are there any law students or lawyers or law professors? Couple? Okay, good. A lot of people who are interested in devoting their lives are going to law school, and it is having an effect because over 100 schools now have courses in animal law. But it's time to raise that ante too. So maybe get an advanced course in farm animal law or in standing, and enter a writing competition. There are zillions of them, even if you're not a law student. Enter a writing competition about this. It's another way of making a big difference. Of course, many of you aren't lawyers, like me, I'm not a lawyer, but you still have to live, and maybe you can find a way to live while making a difference for animals. Portland, of course, has perhaps the biggest example of this than anywhere else. There are people in this room who have devoted their lives to making a difference, not within non-for-profits, for animals. Maybe you don't make hundreds of millions of dollars yet, but you're making a staggering difference. A few examples. Josh, Chad, Amiko, Isa, lots of other people in here too. The world famous vegan mini-mall. Isa has put this message in the New York Times more than a few times. So the other thing is, as you're doing your advocacy to get these issues going, another benefit of it is that you're going to make these people rich. Maybe you'll remember us when. Lolo, the young woman who started the blog Vegan Yum Yum, didn't know how to cook, but she wanted to learn, and she taught herself. And she liked to write, so she started this blog, Vegan Yum Yum. It became popular, and then it became a book. And then she got on the Martha Stewart show. So she's spreading the word about vegan food, and she's doing what she loves. So it can happen. You can grow that. It can become mainstream easily if you start thinking of it not just in terms of leafleting on the street corner, but also do that and think bigger. Opening a for-profit business, retail or otherwise, within animal rights is a really powerful direction. I've always thought I should go into the vegan soup business or the vegan pie business. So maybe I just gave one of you an idea, because I'm probably not going to. Can anyone else think of any other businesses that the animal rights movement could use? It doesn't have to be retail. Do you feel like sharing? Yeah?
Just because it's something I'm facing right now, home building materials.
Home building materials.
It's difficult to find things that don't have animal pieces.
There you go. What else? Anyone else?
PR firm.
Yeah, a PR firm. Vibrators. Of course. Why didn't I think of that? Anyone else? Another business? Again, you're beyond just retail. I mean, PR firm was beyond just retail. Sorry, Chad. Okay, well, I hope that you continue to think about it and let me know. Okay, so it's exercise time now. I would love for you to find a person or two people next to you and figure out a way to brainstorm some of these issues, something that you might want to go into either now or down the road. And it doesn't have to be just that. Maybe it's something that the person you're talking to would want to go into. There's no hard and fast rule for this except for one thing. It has to benefit animals. And the more you can mainstream the message, the better. So I would love it if you could we're just going to do it for a few minutes, so don't worry if you're shy. Remember, the animals don't have time for you to be shy, so get over it. Get over yourselves and talk to the person next to you, damn it. Who knows, they could be a really good cook, and you might want to befriend them. So just take a few minutes, and then I'm just going to ask a few of you to share what you have. So remember, something that you are thinking of. A lot of you have ideas in the back of your minds right now of things that you could be going into to help animals, be it the PR firm or the vegan vibrator business, or tire making without animal products, or something like that. What can you do? So start talking to the person next to you, please. So I'd love to hear from a few of you, or from as many of you who want to share what kind of ideas you came up with, or even what kind of barriers you think there might be, or if you looked at your partner and said, I have no idea, and then you ended with an idea what that is. So who wants to share? Writing children's books, that's a great idea. And I also think that one really powerful thing about children's books or any books is when it's like not blatantly an animal rights message, but it's in there just even as a subplot. Did anyone read the book Popco? Yeah? Do you know what I mean? That was sort of like like all of a sudden I was like, whoa, she's vegan. Whoa, now she's advocating veganism. I'm getting this book for everyone I know. Here's a really good novel. Haha, hinted. Anyone else? It's a great idea. I love it. I think it's a great idea. And there's so much to be said about marketing, too. I guess marketing would be another good thing for someone to go into. Because if you start to say, something's green or whatever, that's, if it really is green, then you could just sort of like get really famous and really rich that way. And you're like saving animals from being glue sticks. Glue sticks? Who thought of that? They're like, I bet this pig hoof would be sticky. Great grassroots advocacy. Leave your publications at different offices in different locations when you're done with them, rather than just recycling them. Actually, when I used to work out at a Y, which was sort of like this place, I went once and I found all these animal rights magazines in the magazine rack by the treadmills, and I didn't even put them there. I was so excited. I was like, who's my family? That person has tattoos. Great, I love that idea. That's great grassroots advocacy. That's great. One thing that Let Live does that I totally love, by the way, is that they record their everything. They record making breakfast in the morning. Weird, Josh. That was kind of weird this morning. But anyway, so they record all of their talks, and they put it onto the internet. And so even if, it's available forever and ever. And I think that with the grassroots stuff, it would be really great to just start recording this, record your leafleting on the street corner and put it, try and make it viral somehow. Social networking is a really good way of starting that. It's a really good beginning part. Don't appear like the angry, even if you're angry, don't appear like the angry, crazy vegan on the radio. So, I heard this angry, crazy vegan on the radio. Can I have a hamburger? And we kind of have a lot on our shoulders because we're kind of representing everyone and the animals. So if you want to be angry and crazy, do it within closed doors with your peers and in a safe space, a safe community space that you find for yourself, or on the internet. Yeah, and maybe also some market research on that. I know there's been some done, but to present that to these restaurants to show that there's a demand for this. And one other thing I wanted to say based on what you just said is that everything that we're thinking, if it's more grassroots like that, I think it's really important that we do it. But then also think, what else can we do to make it a little bigger? Like I just said, recording things and trying to make them viral. He'll help you. Or, maybe we're third cousins twice removed from a celebrity who's going to be in Portland next week, and so maybe we could try and exploit them for all they're worth. Providing they're compassionate people. I like that idea very much. Actually, after the Let Live conference last summer, I went to Vancouver, BC, And I was like, wow, this is exactly what I wish that most cities looked like, because I felt like there was vegan food everywhere. I mean, there were vegan hot dogs, like the hot dog stands, and like everywhere I went, like I would fall onto a vegan cupcake or something. So they're doing something there. Farm Sanctuary has a brochure that I really love, and it's called The Truth Behind Humane. And it's just you could get it for free, or you could order it from the store for like $5. And you could just put them in your bag and always have them. I like to have a wide array of literature usually in my bag in case something like that comes up. And don't feel like you can't talk about these issues with people because you feel like they'll call you out on something. Margaret Cho once said, like, never argue with a vegan because they're always right. It's true. So one of the great things about coming up with all of these ideas is that aside from the fact that they have the potential to change the world, and transform the world, they also have the potential to transform ourselves too, which I think is another really important part, because we're used to being horrified and angry, and there are plenty of reasons to be both horrified and angry, but if we can find something positive to work on, then we can wake up more excited to face the day. And we can put joy into our lives, and we will be heard, we will be listened to, and we will make change. We just have to chip at that wall and get ourselves out there. I want to tell you briefly, before I conclude, about this project that Josh mentioned, which is called Our Hen House. And it's something that I just started with my partner in life and in activism. And I actually have business cards up here, and there's a sign-up sheet. I think Josh will probably talk about that too after I'm finished. But it basically is like, at the moment, it's a website, it's a blog, and a podcast that is at ourhenhouse.com. And it basically talks about what we're talking about now, and it's a clearinghouse for ideas to get further involved with animal issues beyond just grassroots. There is a grassroots section. And there's also a section called Class Act, which is academic outreach. And there's a section called Legal Eagles, which is about suing the bastards. And there's a section called Media Mavens, which is about media opportunities. And there are a few other sections that I'm forgetting right now. But if you visit ourhenhouse.com, you can see them. And we're trying to put out content every single day and a podcast once a week. And we're going to be growing into a few other things too. And if you have an idea, a lot of you do because you just said them, and you can email me. You can grab my card to have my email address, but it is Jasmin with no E. So Jasmin at ourhenhouse.com, and we can put it up there too. So I'm hoping that this actually acts as just like a place where people could go to think about these things a little bit deeper and a little bit harder, and so that everyone can get involved and we could really just bring this wall down, because it's happening. They just need us to make it happen a little bit more. So that's our hen house. And does anyone have any questions? The number of animals is actually not bigger, it's smaller. It had been 10 billion, and now it's a little over 9 billion. And I mean, that is an important thing to look at too. And I'm trying, I think it's from the, I think it's from the Vegetarian Resource Group, but I could be wrong. But if you email me, I'll send you the link to where I found that information. Oh, United Poultry Concerns. It's from United Poultry Concerns. And also, there's just, I don't really understand where they come up with the 0.5%, because I think there's just, I never got asked. Obviously, it's polling, but there's a lot of people. It's not like they're going to go to every single person, but there's a lot of people who wouldn't necessarily identify as vegan, but really are. And there's a lot of cultures where people are vegan or vegetarians who are mainly vegan, things like that. And also just if you go to the New York Times website and you type in the word vegan or animal rights, a lot more articles are popping up than ever have been before. So it's also things like that. But I mean, when it comes down to the number of animals. Does anyone else have any examples of that, or something I'm not touching on? I got another one. The number of cupcakes Issa has made in the last few months. Declined. number of batter, the amount of batter that Issa is making that she's eating before the cupcakes actually get baked. I always eat. I just like never wind up with the actual cupcake because I've eaten all the batter. Sorry. I think that there's a lot of cracks. Well, first of all, there's the anti-confinement cracks. Since 2002, there have been 7 states that have introduced anti-confinement measures either through legislation or through ballot. So they have banned gestation crates, veal crates, and battery cages, and obviously that doesn't make it okay that doesn't make animal agribusiness okay. But it has, I mean, I worked on the Prop 2 campaign in California, and the number of people who went vegan as a result of that, as a result of the commercials that we had aired, was just staggering. And people start to think about it differently. So I think it's an important incremental step, but it's a very, very tiny one. But it's an important one nonetheless, because if you've been involved in this movement for a long time, there hadn't been anything happening for a really long time. And now there's starting to be things happening. So there's that's a crack. Another crack, Eating Animals by Jonathan Safran Foer, which has the potential to do for this movement what animal liberation did in the 70s. Another crack would be the amount of vegan options available at restaurants, the amount of vegan restaurants opening, the amount of articles that are coming out for our favor, the amount of members that various animal organizations have, things like that, the amount of celebrities speaking out. These are the cracks that I'm talking about. And then other cracks are the fact that there are animal agribusinesses that are currently no longer that are going down and moving to other countries in order to do their killing. So I mean, these are all cracks. Like, yeah, I think it's a really valuable point. And I mean, I think it was you who I was talking to right outside the door, and we were talking about the number 267 that I have on my wrist, which was, when I got it, the number of chickens killed every second in this country, and now it's 286, or at least as of last year it was, but I'm not sure what it is right now. I guess it's probably gone down from that. I don't have the exact number. But anyway, I guess it has to have gone down if the full amount of animals have gone down. But anyway, I said I have hope, and like I have to. I think we have to maintain a level of hope. And also, even if we don't have hope, even if we're just like depressed all the time, we don't have hope, which I hope isn't the case, because I think that there's always things to be hopeful about. What's the alternative? The alternative is to like have cruelty. The alternative is that an animal's going to suffer. The alternative is that another agribusiness company is going to open up. What's the alternative? Yeah. It depends on the context and the person I'm talking to, but I think that we can waste a lot of time discussing that internally, and I think that in the last 5 years the movement has wasted a lot of time talking about it, and I think that there are very different people. So like, for example, people are like, well, you're not an abolitionist or something like that. Well, there is a thing about strategy, and as long as you're always advocating veganism, along the way there is room for other things, providing you're not saying, support this bill to ban battery cages and then eat cage-free eggs. No. Support this bill to ban battery cages so that chickens can have more than this amount of space to live their entire lives in. And by the way, there's a damn good tofu scramble down at, what's that? Blossoming Lotus. Thank you, Portlander in front row. So I think that like there's a time to have the discussion, but I think that there's a time to just cut off that discussion and realize that there are many, many different ways to go about getting to this place. And I think that maybe as long as we can go about it in different ways. I mean, no one way works and no one way doesn't work. Okay, well, I really appreciate your being here today, and I have my cards in the front, and I hope that you take one and that you email me. I know that there are a couple of announcements that want to happen and need to happen. Hi, Ruby. And thank you to Let Live for bringing me here and for having me, and thank you to you guys for coming. And I'm going to give the mic to Josh now. And